I'm gonna get rules and regulations of the Crow Board of Horse Racing. A bill for an act entitled Rules and Regulations of the Crow Board of Horse Racing. And I'm gonna hand the floor over to the Culture Committee Chair, Manuel Coverfield. Secretary Elizabeth Hupp. Lawrence. Okay, Secretary is Lawrence D.
Okay, Jay was net draft how I bug clean version but I didn't mind do that why you could why not go down cut. We met on this on the committee on Thursday, not Thursday, I believe it was the 10th of October. Yeah. Iwawari, the Comum, and the consensus of the committee recommendation was to pass this on the floor during this regular session, and everybody that was there voted for it. And Pat Alden made the motion, and everybody, and Lauren T. Crane. One question today, second today, visa book, and we would like to bring it out of old business and pass it during the regular session hard with him, at that time, the JR is read into record in the committee by Melissa Shane. I gave a lot to all week too much, Jay.
Jay.
Did you get a clean version with the draft removed from that horse racing? I gave the rules and regulations of the Crow Board of Horse Racing. And at this time, that there was a recommendation of the committee to 7 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain. I didn't call it your age, Kim. Yeah, you got that version? Okay, he's going to make some copies, but on the version on the JER, what they had brought in is what we're going to pass, but there's another page identifying some of the policies and stuff like that. That at first they brought a big one, but back in 2008, and this is the thick one here. And yeah, could I just should have come? To work on good day, get him out of get him go there again, and bylaws, they do get it, that court to give me. I get JR, good idea on what to start with, and good idea, cook the cut, but cook and away, did you much, you could have to them. That's what my understanding was, and go there again, we'll work on it and bring these bylaws back. If that is him, there was brought one question forth during the committee meeting was about how it's going to affect the Crow Fair. They elect these positions: the parade, horse racing, powwow. If that is good, which show him now how it's going to affect the horse racing. We cannot go and have them do this and do that, but if they invite us, the board, they'll invite us and we can come in. On some of these, what we read into record, there was some languages there that anybody that has horse racing will comply with what the Board of Horse Racing. Probably need an amendment to kind of put the language there in racing part, probably in section, I believe it was 8. Yeah, section 8, race meets. And Kodadi could probably make an amendment at H. Coneoka that it wouldn't affect the Crow Fair of until they're invited. And simulcast a lot of things that kind of being worked with the state of Montana also. So there's a lot of things that we can pass this and they can start working on their regulations and bylaws. Then it's up to them to negotiate with the state of Montana on simulcast, how far they want to go. They haven't really specified, but it's looking at the reservation right now. But they're going to go outside. They have to negotiate with the state of Montana to get recognized by them. And their version could I a bill for an act entitled to NDR Kodat Sigu Yakadati Cook Baohat Sugam Cook Balapuid and duties Kodadi directors and Mashi and sections for the Hamishkarik and section all the way up to section 9 called penalties and judicial review. Kodati give for this him. And the majority of the committee recommend the passage of this because they need something to stand on and go forward with the body, and so we can give them the opportunity to go and negotiate with the state and try and work on what they want to bring in. And Kodati the gift they should Kodati much. Ma you could should can Yage can already get out here. Okay, Lauren, that I'll say that behind. Go say, hey, never got to say what you okay. I'm cooking a draft here, that could all short. Kukana Takana Didi could Bahad, Kukala Goistat, Pogodeo, Kukala Rossi to Wood, Shirgino Abe Majation, Jirakshigo Adwahat, and Jackie Shaw.
Okay, I'm gonna make a point of order here.
Okay.
Jay, I want you to focus on this meeting right now. Some of the senators, I know that the district funds your, let's get to that. Today is the order of business and we'll stay on the agenda. Okay? Because we'll take care of that. I want to take care of this business today. And I asked Jay, directive, to take care of that later on, not right now. I don't want you guys to be jumping around. I want to get this done, out of the way. Okay, at this time, again, I'm gonna, there's a clarification. The clarification is that I got the wrong one. Crow Board of Horse Racing. Again, I believe it's an amendment to that, or there's a draft that's been handed out.
The draft, from the one that you got there, and this is what they introduced.
Yeah, I believe this is the one that he handed out, the draft. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I believe that you made a copy for everybody, Jay? Okay, and so this is not in the packet, right?
No.
Okay, so we gotta bring it out of committee and
Yep.
then read this into record.
Yeah, we have to read this into record. I was gonna have Bill Watt read into record, but I will ask Jay to read this into record, as he's long-winded, so.
Okay, at this time, need a motion to bring this on the floor.
I'll make that motion to bring this Board of Horse Racing out from committee to the floor.
Second.
Oh, this is, yeah, but what we're doing is that we're getting this out into the floor so I will, then, thank you, I needed to know that. Okay, just to clarification that again, Karichi's, this is an old business?
Far
It's
as I
already an
know.
old business, but your motion is appropriate, bringing it down on the floor, and then we're gonna get to this.
Yep.
Okay. The floor, so
The motion was
Manuel
made.
made a motion, who's the second? Second by Senator Hooks. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion to pass unanimously 13-0-0. On the floor now. Okay, this bill, the new version, right? We're reading into record.
Yeah, this is what we got as a draft, what they stamped on. So this is what we got and what we read into in a committee meeting.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, again, Legal J will read this into the record.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Secretary, members of the body, Mr. Vice Chairman. Got a proposed bill for an act, which I will read into the record. January 2013 Crow Tribal Legislature, CLB, introduced by Darren Oldcout, Chairman, Crow Tribe Executive Branch, a bill for an act entitled Crow Board of Horse Racing Act.
Okay, need a motion.
Motion to adopt.
Okay, need a second. Second by Senator D. Crane. Proceed.
Whereas horse racing is an important traditional activity of the Crow people, and whereas simulcast and parimutuel wagering are Class 3 gaming activities under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, and whereas the Crow Nation desires to provide a regulatory framework within tribal jurisdiction for horse racing activities on the Crow Reservation, and whereas such regulation is also necessary for sanctioning by the American Quarter Horse Association, and whereas an amendment to the Crow Montana Gaming Compact allowing Class 3 simulcast and parimutuel wagering throughout the reservation under the regulatory authority of the Crow Board of Horse Racing has been approved by the state of Montana and by the United States Department of the Interior, and whereas sanctioned horse racing under tribal jurisdiction does not exist anywhere in the United States, giving the Crow Nation an historic opportunity for exercising sovereignty and self-government in this arena, and whereas a strong and well-respected regulatory program for sanctioned racing and wagering will strengthen Crow horse breeding and add to the possibilities for economic development on the reservation, and whereas the chairman of the executive branch has authority and responsibility pursuant to the enumerated powers in Article 4, Section 5B of the Constitution and bylaws of the Crow Tribe of Indians to appoint committee members to executive branch committees, and further, the enumerated powers of the executive branch include in Section 3B the power to administer and oversee all functions of the executive branch. And whereas the legislative branch of the Crow Nation has authority and responsibility pursuant to its powers and duties set forth in Article 5, Section 2C of the Constitution and bylaws of the Crow Tribe of Indians to adopt legislation not inconsistent with this Constitution, which is necessary in exercising the duties conferred upon the three branches of government. And whereas the combined actions of both the executive and legislative branches of the Crow Nation will create statutory support and a regulatory framework for sanctioned simulcast and parimutuel racing on the Crow Reservation. Now, therefore, be it enacted by the Crow Tribal Legislature. Section 1, Adoption. That the Crow Board of Horse Racing Act, attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, is approved and shall be codified in a separate section of the Crow Law and Order Code, except that the amendments to Title 23 of the Crow Law and Order Code shall be codified in that section. Section 2, Effective Date. That this act shall be effective immediately upon its enactment and approval by the chairman of the executive branch. Crow Board of Horse Racing Act. Section 1, Purposes of the Board. The Crow Board of Horse Racing shall A, exercise licensing, policymaking, and regulatory functions. B, submit its budget requests to the tribal chairman. C, submit reports required of it by law or by the tribal chairman. And D, promulgate rules for the operation of sanctioned horse racing on the Crow Reservation. Section 2, Duties of the Director. The Crow Board of Horse Racing operates under the purview of the director, who shall A, direct and supervise the budgeting, record-keeping, reporting, and related administrative and clerical functions of the board, subject to board approval. B, draft the board's budgetary requests. C, collect all revenues for the board and deposit them in the proper fund or account. D, provide staff for the board. E, cause to be printed and distributed for the board any required notices, rules, or orders adopted, amended, or repealed by the board. F, supervise race meets and activities of racing officials. G, hire all racing officials. H, inspect race facilities. I, prescribe the duties and salaries of stewards. And J, perform other duties as directed by the board. Section 3, Board of Membership. The Crow Board of Horse Racing shall A, be composed of 6 regular district members, in addition to the director, appointed by the tribal chairman, who must be registered voters of their districts. B, members shall serve for terms of 4 years, with initial terms of 2 years for the representatives from Mighty Few, Center Lodge, and prior districts in order to stagger the terms. A member may be removed from office by the tribal chairman for cause. C, an incumbent board member may be reappointed by the chairman. A vacancy on the board must be filled for the unexpired term by appointment by the chairman. D, the presiding officer is the director appointed by the tribal chairman. E, 2 members of the board, if all board members have been notified at least 24 hours before a meeting, constitute a quorum for the transaction of business by the board. The director is counted for purposes of establishing a quorum. F, as provided in the tribal budget, the board may incur costs, charges, and expenses, including travel, reasonable necessary to carry out their duties. G, board members who are not tribal employees may be paid $50 for each day in which the member is actually working for the board. Board members who are tribal employees may be paid if it is necessary for them to work after business hours and on weekends. Section 4, Reporting Requirements. A, the board shall keep detailed records of board meetings, of the business transacted at the meetings, and license applied for the issued. B, records of the board kept by the department are public records subject to public inspection. Section 5, Rule-making function. The board shall adopt rules to govern race meets and the parimutuel system. These rules shall include the following: A, definitions. B, auditing. C, supervision of the parimutuel system. D, prevention of corrupt practices. E, supervision, duties, and responsibilities of the director, the board members, the presiding steward, the racing secretary, and other racing officials. F, licensing of all personnel who have anything to do with the substantive operation of racing. G, the establishment of dates for race meets and meetings in the best interests of horse breeding and racing on the Crow Reservation. H, the veterinary practices and standards which must be observed in connection with race meets. I, absolute responsibility of trainers for the condition of horses and mules, regardless of the acts of third parties. J, licensing or renewal of a license of a person whose license has been suspended by the board or another horse racing jurisdiction. K, setting license fees commensurate with the cost of issuing a license. L, the time, conduct, and supervision of simulcast races and parimutuel betting on simulcast races. And M, licensing, approval, and regulation of simulcast facilities. Section 6, authority of the board. The board shall license and regulate racing and review race meets held on the Crow Reservation. All percentages withheld from accounts wagered must be deposited in the board's agency fund account. The board shall then distribute all funds collected to live race purses or for other purposes for the good of the existing horse racing industry. Any new race-related gaming, including parimutuel and simulcast, will be examined and public hearings held to determine the effects of these forms of racing on the existing racing program, Indian relay, and rodeo on the Crow Reservation. The board should consider both the economic and safety impacts on the existing racing and breeding industry. Section 7, office and staff. The director of the Crow Board of Horse Racing will be assigned office space within the executive branch and one administrative assistant. Section 8, race meets. A, it is unlawful for a person to hold a race meet, including simulcast race meets under the parimutuel system on the Crow Reservation without a valid license issued by the board. A person applying for a license to hold a race meet under this chapter shall file an application with the board, which shall set forth the time, place, and number of days the license will continue and other information the board requires. B, a person who participates in a race meet shall be licensed and charged an annual fee set by the board, which shall be paid to the board and used for administrative expenses. Each person holding a license under this chapter shall comply with this chapter and with the rules adopted and others issued by the board. C, a license may not be issued to a person who has failed to pay the fees, taxes, or money required under this chapter. D, applications to hold race meets shall be submitted to the board, and the board shall act on the applications within 30 days. The board is the sole judge of whether the race meet may be licensed and the number of days the meet may continue. E, the board shall require that a fair board and an independent racing association conducting race meets meet the requirements of the rules adopted by the board before granting a license. F, a racing association consisting of a local fair board or an association approved by a local fair board may apply for a license to hold a simulcast race meet in a simulcast facility. G, an unexpired license held by a person who violates this chapter or who fails to pay to the board the sums required under this chapter is subject to cancellation and revocation by the board. Section 9, penalties and judicial review. A, a person holding a race meet or an owner, trainer, jockey, or groom participating in a race meet without first being licensed under this chapter, or a person violating this will be prosecuted under applicable law. Racing that would qualify as a bush meet or Class 1 racing under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act does not fall under this act. B, the board, or upon the board's authorization, the board of stewards of a race meet at which they officiate may exclude from race courses at Crow a person whom the board considers detrimental to the best interest of racing as defined by the rules of the board. C, as its own formal act or through an act of a board of stewards of a race meet, the board may suspend or revoke any license issued by the department to a licensee and assess a fine not to exceed $1,000 against the licensee who violates any of the provisions of this chapter or any rule or order of the board. In addition to the suspension or revocation and fine, the board may forbid application for relicensure for a 2-year period. Fines collected under this subsection must be deposited in the general fund. D, the board shall promulgate rules implementing this chapter, including the right to a hearing for individuals against whom action is taken or proposed under this chapter. The rules may include provisions for the following. 1. Summary imposition of penalty by the stewards of a race meets, including a fine and license suspension, subject to review by the board. 2. Stay of a summary imposition of penalty by either the board or board of stewards. 3. Retention of purses pending final disposition of complaints, protests, or appeals of stewards' ruling. 4. Setting aside of up to 3% of exotic wagering on races, including simulcast races, to be deposited in the board's agency fund account. The board shall then distribute all funds collected under this subsection to live race purses or for other purposes that the board considers appropriate for the good of the existing horse racing industry. 5. Using 2% of exotic wagering on live racing to be immediately and equally distributed to all purses except stakes races. 6. Assessment of penalty and interest on the late payment of fines, which must be paid before licensees are reinstated. 7. Definition of exotic forms of wagering on races to be allowed. 8. Standards for simulcast facilities. And 9. Conduct and supervision of simulcast races and parimutuel betting or wagering on simulcast races. E. The Crow Tribal Court has exclusive jurisdiction for judicial review of cases arising under this chapter. F. Conflict of interest. The director and board members will remove themselves from any hearing in which their interest is at stake. And be it further enacted that the Crow Tribal Gaming Ordinance be amended as follows. Section 10C, Duties and Powers. With the exception of parimutuel and simulcast racing, which will be administered by the Board of Horse Racing, the Gaming Commissioner shall administer the provisions of this ordinance and shall have all powers necessary therefore. Section 11A, Authority to License. With the exception of parimutuel and simulcast racing, which will be licensed by the Board of Horse Racing, the Tribal Gaming Commission shall have the sole and exclusive authority to license and regulate Class II and Class III gaming operations on Crow Indian lands which are now, or may hereafter, be permitted by federal law and the compact. Section 30, Regulation and Inspection. With the exception of parimutuel and simulcast racing, which shall be regulated by the Board of Horse Racing, Class III gaming shall be regulated by the Tribal Gaming Commission, which shall adopt all necessary and appropriate rules and regulations for Class III gaming, including but not limited to. The proposed bill concludes with a certification and signature page. Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Okay, we need a 30-minute presentation. I know that this was previously read into record. I know that what me and Secretary Ocrow came talked to me was about this is the red line version, but I believe some of the majority of the members weren't here for this, but we needed to read through this. I asked them to just continue reading because we all need to hear it.
Okay.
So the floor recognizes Senator Covers.
Yeah, we kind of went through this, and the discussion was open, and some of the visitors had comments that were made about what they really kind of going after is some of the control on some of these. They call it the needle. I guess that's where the part where they shoot some of these horses before a race, and that was the control. They don't have no control, no power over them. And that was one of the biggest talk they had. So some of the audiences made mention of that, and they thought this would kind of alleviate a lot of those problems that some of these things that can be controlled. So at that time, some of them talked that this was kind of a good bill for the Crows to pass it and work on it, and the simulcast, and that be kind of forthcoming, because you have to work with the state of Montana to get some of these issues acknowledged. So if they want to go outside the reservation, then they have to have an agreement with the state of Montana with the gaming compact. So that's what the discussion was about, and so we just kind of made sure that everybody was up to par, and we open up for discussion, and some of them agreed on having something like this that was far from coming, and they kind of appreciated that this bill was introduced. So I'll give the floor to Secretary D. Crean. Well, should I, Lawrence?
Okay, floor recognizes Senator D. Crane.
Oh, Ricky, no, racetrack, can I get a goal issue? I get 2 times a year, I scared you was like native days and crow fair. Hey, luckily, no one ten I got racing to go out to. I'm gonna Gigi now as a hook, is it chill? Make a go like you was some quick brace. I'm like again, you will hit too much. You will allow much. Gina was I could control could I the Gigi to get tucked in shape the could have sat over get it in shape but saw look hey manuals or just cook in shape it is saw look rusiki pastorally direct rusiki bagoaz by the pastor one yichok on a local to say oh good die lucky in charge over it crowbread Robert, by the Nigeria cities are Wagulady. Kagonalo, be waked, Mr. Mulady. Rushikia, Kowet, Kagon Nigeria, and Wagulady. Kowestra, Alot, Mastina, Galo, Yakri. And when I deal like Biostick, Natalo, Rushiki, Kagoblaze, and big Itchik Blazna.
Okay, anybody from the committee that wants to say a few words? We are, Bill, we are on the Crow Fair Board horse racing. We are at the 30-minute presentation. But that's just for your up to speed. And then also, floor recognizes Senator Coyote Runs.
Thank you, Speaker. Board, could I have you will only could I get Lawrence Bashley get up to pass get easy or about hour. And the board could regulations policy to set could how you can come up with easy to hook in a reservation I'll go and easy I'll say hook. Updated. I had New York at each last part two. So la casa easy must too. Easy use for mail to. And I did take head of miles out of rules and regulations say to follow good book. Yeah, he will have my shot it. And my book who I do it, but it's big enough. I has it. Dear, good chima. Oh.
Okay, we are at that 30-minute presentation anymore. Okay, Senator Crocodile, floor recognized.
Okay. Marshal good. Nela Nick Cooper. Took Nick Cooper. Marshal Dick couldn't. Nick Cooper wagon I got a comb. Dick couldn't mean I said could but give all my to him. You could I should Mahuk did I then you see who gave to good. Then you see the house. Necrobeger touched say like Bennings built very fierce got to Balapadu chicken necrobeger got a mahul side of go and then I get a few so I did say the city deal could go to church and come out no more is on the Canada could I do this. I get Balapadu could go and Canada. Nici walu ke kalbona khia ko ke mera ke dio gichi ma oh
Did I got 30-minute presentation from the executive branch side? Do you, Vice Chair Wilson, got any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. Not to belabor anything that anybody else has said in support of this legislation. We have a good track here, we have a good facility, and like some of the senators have said that we only use it 2 times a year, about. And the racing industry in the state of Montana has really taken a hit. I think they only run in Miles City, I think. That's the only place. And like everybody else said, there's a lot of people there's a lot of crow horsemen. These guys, we're well noted for our horsemanship, and not only the regular racing, but also Indian relay. And I think that this is a positive piece of legislation that will help bring revenue to the tribe. In creating jobs, bringing money into the communities. I think this is a good piece of legislation. I don't know if Bill has anything to comment on this. I don't think so. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I overlooked my papa, sorry. Senator Riobert.
Thank you, Speaker. Secretary, Vice Chairman, members of the body. I have a few requests maybe with the executive. When it comes to amendments, I would like to make these amendments na membership kutaija when it's butuluk, we should have a confirmation hearing on those board members over here at the branch. Deva, second one, Graja, Hina. Last section 10 go page. That first one was on section 3. Section 10 through 11 Koema. Now again, gaming kasaija. Again, basa batid. We're splitting this in half. Board kragum karamachko hawa silma. Gaming part, everything, parimutuel, simulcast. But it's a form of gaming, couldn't correct? So I think we should somehow kind of combine that with the casino in some way, amendment because the commissioner has to give the board license. Parimutuel bidding, de la simulcast, the casino will probably be involved, So, those are the 2 requests I have, Vice Chairman. The confirmation part, and then maybe with that, the second one would be the on the casino there, especially the parimutuel betting, because I know we're looking into on site. We're looking into simulcast on these other racetracks across the country. That was kind of on the table there for a while, and we're still looking into that for that. So you could request Beja. So when it comes to amendment parts, I think we're gonna have to look at that. All right, thank you.
Okay, before we get lost here, I want to stay on track. I know that Senator Backbone raised his hand and Senator Two Legans, but we are at the 30-minute presentation. You've got to be either a proponent or opponent. And so what I want to do is I'll get to you, Senator Backbone, Senator Two Legans, but we'll get to the debate part and then you can bring up those. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to ask for the recommendation by the Culture Committee Chair, Senator Kawazu.
Okay, the recommendation and like the committee voted on to pass this bill, so that's my recommendation is to pass it.
Was there a vote?
Yes.
6-0, gra.
7.
Okay.
7.
The recommendation by the Culture Committee for this horse racing board passed 7-0 on October 10th. Okay, the floor recognizes Senator Backbone.
I had a question for Jay, kind of follow up on Senator Reelbird's remark. Okay, the board and the director, I take it that they'll have to go through the gaming commission? Because, like you said, this is a part of gaming, so I take it they would need a gaming license, right? If it's, you know, I think that they should have a gaming license and go through the steps, background check, whatever, you know, etc.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a very good question. It's something that our gaming committee chair is also concerned about. The answer is that the Board of Horse Racing would not be required to receive and would not be subject to any regulation or licensure from the currently existing Crow Tribal Gaming Commission. The language that's explicit in that regard is on page 6 of 7 of this proposed legislation. The bill has proposed amendments to our Title 23, which is the Crow Tribal Gaming Ordinance, which would provide that the Board of Horse Racing has the authority to issue licenses and to actually implement all provisions of the gaming ordinance in the realm of horse racing. So the Tribal Gaming Commission and the Board of Horse Racing would be co-equals. The Board of Horse Racing, in this proposed legislation, the Board of Horse Racing is receiving essentially a delegation from the tribal legislature to enact rules and regulations pursuant to the Gaming Compact and federal law to regulate horse racing. So the short answer is that the Board of Horse Racing will be a co-equal to the Gaming Commission, and one way to look at it would be the Gaming Commission that we have today, the Board of Horse Racing is going to do basically the same thing for the purpose of regulating horse racing. Going just a step further, the Board of Horse Racing will also be conducting the horse racing as well as licensing every person or entity that's seeking to engage in horse racing. But since parimutuel and simulcast are specifically Class 3 gaming, it has to be conducted by the Crow Tribe. Of course, the Board of Horse Racing would be an arm of the Crow Tribe, if you will. I would just conclude, Speaker, Senator Backbone and others, that we did have discussion in the Gaming Committee previously about the pros and cons of carving out horse racing from the Gaming Commission. And there are certainly good reasons on both sides on that question. I think it would probably merit further discussion with the executive, but there's no legal requirement that the Board of Horse Racing be independent from the Gaming Commission, and the Gaming Commission could still issue licenses for horse racing, but that's a discussion that would need to be held. And as the committee chair noted, we do have a consensus from the committee to pass this proposed legislation as is. So that would be the committee recommendation. Speaker, I guess anything further, I would probably want to have good feedback discussion with the executive, since this is the chairman's proposed legislation. Thank you.
Okay, the floor recognizes Senator Tulegans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Secretary, members of the body. I just wanted to state that, you know, we as a legislative branch, we are the lawmaking body of the tribe, and we seem to be creating these boards. And, you know, I am in an agreement with Senator Reelbird's request for that they have to come through here for confirmation, which is, you know, which is really good. You know, it's a really good process, and that's how it should be structured. And since, you know, we as the governing body, you know, we're creating these boards, you know, we're giving them authority, we're giving them the power to administer. So we need to make sure that we have a set foundation to make sure that the right people get appointed in that position. And, you know, if you look on a preamble of the Constitution, you know, I keep revisiting this, and it states in the preamble that the members of the Crow Tribe of Indians to promote in general to the general welfare of the Crow Tribe and provide for the lawful protection and operation of the government. So, you know, I would like to, you know, see an appointed board that, you know, that will not make the wrong choices, that will make the educated choice. And there is going to be a lot of money channeled once this is going to get going. You know, years down the road, you know, we're going to say, oh, we should have did this, we should have did this, we should have did this. There's people who are that are going to be appointed to this board, and you know, we could stricken it to where it'll be a solid foundation. And you know, I do want to make an amendment. And you know, just wanted to throw this out there, and it kind of coincides with Senator Wilbert is going to implement. You know, I would like to see a portion where it states all appointed district board members shall be subject to tribal, state, and federal background check administered by the Office of the Secretary of the Executive Branch. Upon successful completion of the approved background checks, all appointed board members shall be approved by the Crow Tribal Legislature following confirmation process of the legislature. All appointed district board members shall not have or been convicted of any felony crime. And if we do implement these kind of laws to govern the Board of Horse Racing, we need to make sure we appoint the right people to make sure they have the education and the experience. And, you know, that's what we do. We are the lawmaking body. And, you know, we just got to make sure that we set the right foundation for our service board so it can operate in an operation lawful government, as it states in our preamble. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, the floor recognizes Senator Covers Up.
Okay, thank you. You know, going through this, a lot of wording that it's, you know, the executive chairman uses the word, the previous chairman, the one before, and they administer our funds, administer us, and that's a pretty strong word. So they're giving their power to some of this board and some of the languages they have in there. So that's their duty to administer to them, to administer to something else. You know, those are the kind of questions that's out there. But the chairman is administering his right to have this board administer. So you see those languages and those kind of things are in there. But if he wants to do that and create a board for them to use to the Board of Horse Racing and those kind of things that, you know, so, you know, just like it was just a recommendation from the committee that we just passed these, you know. Well, that was just a comment on my part. Thank you.
Okay, I believe what Senator Covers Up also, as the Culture Committee Chair, has conducted his meeting. But yes, there is a lot of amendments, I believe, that we still need to, you know, make. And it's we're doing our job. One, he's saying that it's better to have, you know, when it's the floor, you still have that right to make those amendments, regardless. And if any more comments from the body, if not, I'd like to make a comment. Okay, I'll give the floor over to Secretary Okro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body. I just had a question in regards to like the protocol on qualifications of a board member. It's just a question because I'm trying to understand it, and I realize there are qualifications outside of the reservation to be a board member, and I know there's qualifications as a jockey, so I'm wondering if that qualifies for a board member too. Is a jockey can't own a racehorse, so therefore, can a board member own a racehorse? You know, I know it's just a question. But according to this, they can own a racehorse, so it doesn't exclude them. But if we do include them, I'm just trying to avoid any problems in the future where somebody might, you know, a couple of board members might be horse race owners and side with issues on their behalf or something. Anyway, that's just a question. if one of the attorneys maybe can answer it. Thank you.
I believe what Secretary Wilcrow is pointing to is an ethical question. As a board member, I think you should, for example, let's use the casino. One of the discussions that we had in the casino was employees of the casino shall not gamble at the casino because they would have an advantage because they might be the maintenance of the machines themselves and they might know how to manipulate it. So in other words, what I believe Secretary Wilcrow is saying is that maybe a board member may manipulate some decision-making against, during the horse races or the simulcast or whatever. See, it's an ethical question is what I look at. And that's why we are here to discuss those kind of issues and those kind of matters that might come up. That's why you and I are lawmakers to resolve and find remedy and a resolution to meet those questions that matters, the issues. So it's all legitimate questions and we need to make those amendments. Another thing that nobody has brought up is money. Like I always say, the money. If you guys think I'm crazy about money, no, I'm not. The Bible says that money answereth all things. If you ever read that, it's in the Bible. Money answereth all things. And then it says the love of money is the root of all things. They always say the love of money, but they say, it's the love of money that is the root of all. They always misquote that money is the root of all evil, but it's not. It's the love of money. And what I'm saying is this, okay, I'm going to make a point here on the substitute resolution that we read into record, and Senator Reelberg has made a good point about Section 3, the confirmation by the legislature, Section 3, Section 3, we need to have that checks and balances, that we have the right people go through the process. But we also have a bill, CLB, about the racing commissioner that is in there, that is also all the elected officers, the general manager, the parade manager. The parade manager, actually, that's when we inserted the 35,000 for parade, and we need to amend that. We need to go back and amend that, because that's where we inserted that the parade manager will get a $35,000 purse money to distribute among the crows. But this year we've increased that to $50,000. So we need to amend that. Not only that, racing commissioner would, that would be $50,000 that they would be given. The general manager would be given the $50,000. The rodeo manager will be given $50,000. And that is law. Not only that, he said, we will not charge at the gates to come to the fairgrounds, to the camping grounds. We will not charge non-Indians. And this year we charge non-Indians, and they turn around, and so it's in there. That's law. We already passed that, and we overlooked that. It's already law. It'll come out charge. So saying all that is, we need to quote this someplace in here, to that effect. And then the confirmation, and then this is what the penalties and the judicial reviews is that in Section 9, under C, you talk about the last sentence. It says, fines collected under this subsection must be deposited in the general fund. The general fund is what we call the black hole. You guys are thinking the wrong way. I'm talking about the. Cool. Get a shield spot out there. The whole day up there. I know Senator not afraid from Launch Grass. You're okay. It's the rest of these sore lip kids. But it disappears into the general fund budget. And you, what if we say, because this is about horse racing, right? And I would like to see an amendment that is deposited into the horse racing line item budget. Look at that. And then in section D, subsection 4, this is where you always watch out for other purposes. Hey, these old 1948 politicians, Senator, not afraid from Lost Grass. Hey, Gage, be mail with you.
That's right.
Other purposes of cut they can use that money. Isabi meal deal and meal yes sawagashi again as you read. It says setting aside of up to 3% of exotic wagering on races, including simulcast races, to be deposited in the board's agency fund account. What is the board's agency fund account? Maybe we need to define that a little bit. The board's agency fund account. To me, that could be anything. Do you know that? It could mean anything. And then it says, the board shall, that word shall, who could have done? Now you're giving a lot of teeth, a lot of power to the board. The board shall then distribute all funds collected under the subsection to live race purses or for other purposes that the board considers appropriate for the good of the existing horse racing industry. Or, for that other purposes, it says, to live race purses or other purposes pertaining to horse racing line item in the general fund budget or something to that effect. So we're trying to keep this in the horse racing business, the industry. We want this to revolve all the time. But if you throw it in the general fund budget, now you can use that for other purposes. And that's where, myself, even an example from the judicial branch, fines and fees go into the general fund budget. It could also say district, but it should be going back to the judicial branch for them to use. Carol, we could go tired. And so if we're going to draft and create law, I believe that we should put those checks and balances. Big checks and balances. This is very general. It's good law. It's in a good direction. We have a goal and objective, and I believe that we're going to get there. We need to have these amendments inserted. And then also, Senator Rilbert also brought out Section 10C of the, be it further enacted that the casino somehow, that language should be included, inserted. I got to ask that question back to him.
Thank you, Speaker. Simulcast a form of Class 3 gaming. And in here it says that the horse aboard racing will control that. At the same time, the casino wants to have simulcast betting like Kentucky Derby, like Preakness, Belmont. They want to have their own simulcast. And now wording it says they would have control of that. So who has that? Does the casino have to go to the board of horse racing, get a license from them to conduct the simulcast? But it's a form of Class 3 gaming. So that's where we gotta define him. That's where I'm saying the Board of Horse Racing should get a license from the commission if they wanna conduct this pari-mutuel. That's what I'm saying.
That's a good point. To share with everybody, the chairman has shared some of the ideas. It's an idea. It's an idea, not saying it's all set in stone. But they're talking about a racino. It's what they're going to call it, a racino here. And it's still, we don't know if it's solid, it's not set in stone. And Minahirage, I believe that's a really good point. And I believe if this was Dell, I believe, can look at this language. And then I think we have a better answer. I know Dell is in NCAI in Tulsa right now. So maybe we should run this across him and see what his opinion is, Bill, on this particular section. And this is what I like to do. It's a lot of good debate on amendments and comments, suggestions. I'm glad that your mind has been stimulated, and I think we want to recess. I want to call for a recess, and then we can continue the rest tomorrow, because I'm going to direct Jay to make these amendments ready for the floor and correlate with a bill, and then get in contact with Dale Lavador in this particular 10C, and then we will continue tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. from where we left off today. Is that a plan? So we can do that. If there's any more comments, amendments from the body, Senator comes up.
Yes, just put this out on the floor, and all the flies come around, take things and put it out on a table, and this is what we're all about. So that's the whole plan. And even in a meeting that some of the confessions we heard, if you guys heard it, you probably just fall over, so I won't mention it. So this is neat to, like you stated, that we just put it on the floor and all these questions, and it's the money part that who's can control who. So that's what we want, is to get everybody worked up so we can work on this, and all the board and the confirmation, everything is just fine. And that's what we did with all these boards, is we wanted that, and so we should have one with this. Thank you.
Okay, Ilga. Okay, go ahead. Got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think you've had a very good discussion on some of these areas that are of importance that need further discussion and clarification. I just wanted, for clarification's sake, I've got 5 areas that, per the directive you spoke of a moment ago, I would prepare an outline or suggested amendment language to send to executive legal, as well as the committee chairs for review. I just wanted to confirm that these are the 5 areas of discussion in need of further discussion, and then if, of course, any senators thought there was something to be added. First, we have the question of legislative confirmation for the board members. Second, further language governing background checks. Senator Two-Leggins had noted prohibition against convicted felons from serving on the board. Third, language that clarifies the budget authorization, or at least the tribal policy of establishing a permanent budget line item for fees collected from licensure activities, as well as, you didn't mention the parimutuel house take, but that would be, of course, another source of revenue. The nature of parimutuel wagering, of course, is that everybody's pooling money in a race through their wagering, and then there's a house percentage that's taken off the top, and then winner take all of the balance. How the law should address the revenues that are generated by the board of horse racing should be very substantial. Number 4, the role of the commission, the currently existing tribal gaming commission, versus the Senator Rilbert noted the horse and board racing. Senator Backbone, had brought out a good point, former Commissioner Backbone, as to what relationship the Board of Horse Racing will have to the commission. Senator Rilbert elaborated on that, and in my view, it's unclear at this point what the respective roles would be when it comes to the casino opening up wagering for off-reservation racing, Kentucky Derby, etc. Number 5, the conflict of interest provision that we don't have. The only reference to conflict of provision we have is in the last sentence in section 9, which basically just addresses the hearings. So if someone's denied a license or is otherwise subject to any type of regulatory action by the board, any board member that has a personal interest at stake is supposed to recuse themselves. That's pretty minimal language. I think Secretary Oldcrow's suggestion is very good, because you want people very knowledgeable of horse racing on this board, but at the same time, persons very knowledgeable may be very interested in participating in horse racing. The legislature should probably draw the line as far as what allowed activities would be available to board members. So those are the 5 areas I've got noted. Speaker, if there's anything else the body would like to throw on top of that, I can certainly add to the list, but these are all very good areas of discussion that do need clarification in the proposed bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, hirala amnaruhuka na Crow Board of Horse Racing Act. We went through the formality of the proposed legislation, bringing it on the floor. We have a substitute resolution through the committee, culture committee. And so we're getting to the debate part, but the debate is when we started debating on amendments. And so what we're doing is going to recess and continue with the debate tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with the debate, and then get to the amendments. And here we have some a confirmation. The confirmation, the background checks and the prohibitions that in the section of the board of membership aid. As we read through this substitute resolution, it's actually a red line version. In a amendment could bow you to never area and that the one of the we've always found that this is about horse racing, and we want a line item budget in the general fund. They want this to go into the general fund, which we call the black hole. This is we want this to be in a line item budget where it goes back to the horse racing, instead of the way it is now. For example, in a judicial branch, they got fines and fees, but it goes back to the general fund. It doesn't go back to the judicial branch, the fines and fees. So this is some of the language that is in here that we see, that we feel like that needs to go back to the horse racing line item budget in the general fund. None of us we're always well aware of, for other purposes, that they can use that money, any way that they can, but not pertaining to horse racing. That's why that word is in there. So we identified some of those, and it says fines collected under this subsection be deposited in the general fund, and should be under the horse racing line item budget, is what it should say, in addition. And then also Senator Rilbert brought out that this, in section 10C, duties and powers, says, with the exception of parimutuel and simulcast racing, which will be administered by the Board of Horse Racing, the Game Commissioner shall administer the provisions of this ordinance and shall have all powers necessary therefore. That's not elaborated. It's so we're trying to find some language and make some amendments to that area where the language is specific. And Chuck should, we've asked Bill and we've asked Legal J to talk to, I know that the gaming part, Dale Lavador, is involved in that area, see what his opinions are, and then, go from there tomorrow, and we're gonna open it up. So I know horse racing board, but there's also another law that we passed, and that was that law of CLVs, I guess, anyways, that one law where the parade, there, 35,000 ganun for parade, budget could buy it. So we have to create a law to do that, but it also, general manager, gotta give him 50,000, racing commissioner was 50,000, rodeo manager was 50,000, and then parade was 35,000. Hemirage, we increased it to 50,000, but we still have to amend that law to 50,000. And then it also says in that bill that we passed, you can't charge non-Indians to go up. And this year they charge non-Indians or non-Crows. So they broke law this year, but that's already passed. So those are things that we've discussed, and we're going to make amendments to this proposed legislation, and we're going to continue tomorrow at 10. If there's any further comments by the body, floor recognizes Vice Chair Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the body, visiting guests. Confirmation hearing, looking back, that was kind of a given during one of the committee meetings. So that confirmation hearing by this body, that's fine, that's okay. Background checks, I think we're okay with that too. But those are the only two proposed amendments that I can speak to right now. So thank you.
All right, and then we'll probably have an answer for that tomorrow, right? Yep. Okay, yeah, and there's no more comments. We're gonna recess until 10 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, see you guys tomorrow at 10.